The ground is shaking beneath your feet. It's not an earthquake, it's not a coincidence. It's an omen that something is about to change in your life. Most people never notice this moment, continuing to walk distractedly, as if nothing were happening, and only realizing later that they've missed their chance. But you feel it. There's a different vibration in the air, an invisible pressure, almost like the second before a storm hits. Your heart beats faster, your breathing seems to change rhythm, and even without understanding, you know, something is happening. These moments are not common. They function like hidden codes, signals that pierce your routine with the force of someone who insists on being noticed. Some call it coincidence. Others call it luck. The truth is, they are portals. Small cracks in the fabric of life, open only to those who can see them. If you ignore them, the portal closes. If you notice them, you cross to the other side. And on the other side, things are never the same again. The risk is brutal. Not listening. Pretending nothing has changed. Continuing to run in circles while fate, for a brief moment, reaches out and offers something that can transform everything. It's like walking into a dark room and, for a second, the door opens a crack, shedding enough light to show the way out. Those who hesitate, lose. Those who walk through, discover. And perhaps you're now standing at that same threshold. Perhaps the signs have already appeared in subtle forms, an unexpected conversation, an unlikely delay, a look that seems to carry a secret. They're like stones lined up on the path, forming a pattern that only those who pay attention can decipher. The question is, will you pass by, or will you understand the message? Fate doesn't usually speak loudly. It whispers. It whispers in small gestures, in strange repetitions, in patterns that repeat until you wake up. And when you finally listen, you realize it wasn't chance, but a calling. If there's something in you that senses change, it's not imagination. It's the echo of these signals, reminding you that you're one step away from crossing an invisible border, the point where persistence becomes conquest, where waiting becomes encounter, where silence becomes revelation. The question remains simple and inevitable. Will you ignore this tremor, or will you allow yourself to hear what no one else has heard? Because when the wings open, there's no turning back. You've probably felt it before, that moment when everything seems the same, but inside you something pulses differently. As if there were a secret layer of reality moving beneath what everyone sees. It's in this invisible space that the signs emerge. Small, almost imperceptible shifts that announce that something greater is preparing to emerge. The thing is, they don't arrive with fanfare or clarion calls. They arrive subtly, like a ray of light breaking through a closed curtain. And if you're not paying attention, that ray of light is lost. The conflict is silent. You feel the call, but at the same time doubt it. Your mind questions, creates logical explanations, seeks to label it a coincidence. Your body, however, notices it first. That sudden chill on your skin for no reason. The weight of a gaze that seems to pierce your soul. The intuition that a door is about to open. These sensations are maps. And when you learn to read them, you discover that you are not lost, but guided. Imagine being on a deserted street at dusk. The lights begin to flicker, and for a second you feel like the whole city is breathing along with you. It's not imagination, it's attunement. It's life offering a password, asking you to trust. And the more you resist, the more distant you become. But when you surrender, you realize that the signs aren't meant to scare you, they're meant to prepare you. They announce, warn, guide you. Many choose to ignore it because the unknown is frightening. Others choose to listen. And that's why so many people choose to stay here, following each revelation, because they know that when something resonates within, it's no accident. It's as if someone lit a candle in a dark room and, suddenly, everything that seemed confusing becomes understandable. Perhaps you recognize yourself in this state, noticing strange repetitions, feeling a different energy when you least expect it, waking up with the certainty that something is changing even without concrete evidence. This is the proximity of the threshold. It's the point at which you realize you're not just walking, you're being called. And it's in this call that lies the difference between remaining lost in the routine or beginning to see what's always been right before your eyes. The curious thing is that these signs never appear alone. They intertwine, forming a silent chain that leads straight to the heart of revelation. And that's exactly where the part almost no one dares to tell begins. There's an invisible price to pay for not listening to the signs. It doesn't present itself immediately, but it seeps into the details of life, silently eroding the opportunities you didn't even realize you were missing. An invitation you never responded to, a word you didn't say, a decision postponed out of fear. And when you look back, you discover it wasn't bad luck, but blindness. Because the signs were there, insistent, begging for passage, but you preferred the comfort of doubt. The body feels before the mind understands. There are nights when you wake for no reason, your heart racing, as if summoned by something you can't name. There are days when you encounter the same symbol repeated, the same phrase echoing in different voices, the same feeling of being led. These aren't fantasies. They're cracks in the common fabric, through which the truth tries to penetrate. The dilemma is cruel. Trust this whisper or cling to what you already know. It's the clash between hope and fear, light and darkness. One side calls you forward, to the crossing. The other pins you to the ground, repeating that it's too dangerous to believe. The result is paralysis, as if trapped between two banks, watching the bridge form but lacking the courage to cross. Imagine walking down a long, narrow hallway. The lights flicker, casting shadows that seem to come to life. Each step echoes as if the floor announces your presence to fate itself. You hesitate. You feel something watching you. Your breath catches, your chest tightens, but there's also a thread of clarity in the air. As if, behind the curtain of fear, there's a revelation waiting to reveal itself. This is the point at which many retreat. They give up, convincing themselves there's nothing there. But it's precisely at this threshold that the field opens up. Reality begins to reorganize itself, not explosively, but in small shifts that only those who persevere notice. Silence gains weight, time seems to slow down, and the next step becomes more decisive than all the previous ones combined. What if, with every heartbeat, the world responded? What if what you call a coincidence was actually the signature of a change already underway? There's a fine line between those who see the signal as noise and those who recognize it as a password. And when that password is finally cracked, nothing remains the same. What comes after this moment cannot be explained in ordinary words. It's as if reality opens a crack to something much greater, something that still lurks, waiting for the exact moment to reveal itself. There are times when the signal doesn't present itself as a distant warning, but as a gentle touch within your own skin. You feel a sudden pause in the air, as if the surroundings have stopped for a second just for you to notice. It's almost imperceptible, but it carries a weight that pierces your chest. Life speaks in small gestures, and often you only realize it when you look back and understand that it wasn't a coincidence, it was an invitation. The unexpected thing is that these signs don't just appear in solemn moments. They can be hidden in the trivial, in the way someone looks at you in a crowd, in a stray phrase that insists on echoing for days, in the silence of a room where everyone seems busy, but you sense something else hovering. The banal detail becomes a message, like a letter with no return address that arrives exactly when it should. At this point, your heart splits. Part of you wants to run, ignore it, pretend nothing is happening. Another part, however, asks for just a moment of surrender. It is in this space that the dilemma lies, to believe in the invisible or to take refuge in the logic that soothes but imprisons. The curious thing is that when you allow yourself to simply breathe and observe, the tension dissolves for seconds, and it's as if a path reveals itself beneath your feet. Imagine being on a deserted road at nightfall. The headlights illuminate only a few meters, but you keep moving forward, unsure of what lies around the bend. Fear is present, but alongside it is a strange sense of confidence, as if each step is guided by something that doesn't need to be seen to be real. This mixture of apprehension and faith is the very stage where the signal manifests itself. It's also here that many feel the urge to support this journey, leaving a silent sign that the message touched them, like lighting a small flame in the darkness. It's not just about agreeing. It's about recognizing that this journey is yours too, that the words resonate because they speak to something you already know but rarely dare to admit. And perhaps it is in this interweaving of fear and trust that the key lies hidden. Because the signal never arrives to completely comfort, it arrives to provoke movement. To remind you that there are more layers to be discovered, layers that still lie waiting, ready to open when the next step is taken. Sometimes the signal doesn't arrive as a flash of light that illuminates everything, but as a strange absence, a void that interrupts the normal flow of things. It's the phone call that doesn't come, the door that doesn't open, the delay that changes the entire route. From the outside, it seems like mere chance. Inside, you sense a message hidden in this space. It's as if the silence speaks louder than any words. The curious thing is that these moments don't just bring discomfort, they also bring promise. Emptiness can be fear, but it can also be opening. Imagine walking down a dark hallway and realizing there's a chink of light at the end. The distance frightens, but the clarity attracts. Your heart beats in conflict. Part of you longs to return to the safety of the shadows, another part is called by the possibility of crossing over. The weight of this dilemma is immense, because every choice seems to have an echo that spreads. Ignoring the signal may keep everything the same, but it can also condemn you to repeat the same cycles without realizing it. Following it may create uncertainty, but it can also open doors that would never have been revealed otherwise. It's a silent game between losing the known and gaining the invisible. Sometimes life places you right on that threshold, between the fear of falling apart and the chance of finding yourself whole. It's at this point that your breath catches, your body hesitates, your mind creates 1,000 excuses to stop. But it's also at this point that revelation is born. The moment when the unknown ceases to be merely a threat and begins to reveal itself as a possibility. And it is precisely in this narrow space that everything is decided. The silence grows dense, the darkness seems to stare back, and each heartbeat becomes a drum that announces movement. There is still no complete clarity, but there is no denying it. Something greater is approaching, ready to reveal itself at the exact moment the veil falls. The void that once seemed merely absence begins to take shape. It becomes almost palpable, like a mist enveloping the entire body, oscillating between protection and threat. It is in this density that the mind tries to find logic, but finds nothing but silence. And yet, within this silence, there is a force that pulsates, insisting on being felt. The paradox is inevitable. At the same time that the heart contracts in the face of uncertainty, something inside you expands, as if recognizing that darkness also holds promises. With each moment, duality reveals itself more clearly. It's like standing before a half-open door, seeing only the shadow projected on the floor. A step back restores a sense of security, but keeps the repetition going. A step forward opens onto the unknown, where both falling and flying are possible. This suspended point, where fear and hope meet, is more real than any certainty ever experienced. Your body registers everything. Your breath shortens, your blood quickens, your skin crawls. Every internal signal confirms that this is an unusual moment. The world around you keeps spinning, but for you, time slows down, as if each second carries the weight of an irreversible choice. It is in this interval that life tests your willingness to cross the invisible boundary that separates the familiar from the possible. Imagine standing before a lake at night. The surface reflects the moon, but also hides depths you can't see. The water gently invites you in, yet threatens with the unknown. The decision to touch this surface determines whether you continue observing from the outside or discover what lies beyond the reflection. Fascination and fear intertwine, forming a tension that never resolves, only grows. And the more this tension builds, the clearer the premonition becomes that something is about to reveal itself. Like a bated breath before a word, or the instant the curtain vibrates before parting. The space between what you know and what you dare not yet know narrows, and it is in this narrowing that the next sign prepares to emerge. The lake remains still, but with each passing second its surface seems to thicken, as if holding a secret ready to emerge. The silence that was once mere absence now transforms into anticipation. You realize that nothing remains neutral in this state. Every choice, even the most discreet, begins to shape the invisible forms preparing to take shape. A gesture of trust alters the air around you, while hesitation repeats old patterns and reinforces the cycle you already long to escape. It is in this realm that life displays its silent logic. Every action generates a reflex, every movement summons a response. Sometimes it comes as an abrupt change, an unexpected encounter, a door that opens without warning. Other times, it arrives subtly, like a sense of clarity born amidst confusion. But there is always feedback. The field you touch gives something back, even when you think no one else has noticed. Imagine throwing a stone into water. At first, the impact is small, but the ripples expand far beyond the point of impact. This is how every choice works. A look, a word spoken or kept, a decision that seemed insignificant can echo for weeks, months, even years. This is the true weight of signals. They don't exhaust themselves. They create currents that reshape the entire landscape. The contrast is inevitable. Effort without direction leads to exhaustion, but effort tuned to the right signal creates results that seem disproportionate. It's the moment when small actions yield greater results than any calculation could predict. This inflection point doesn't happen theoretically. It happens in daily practice, behind the scenes, invisible, that few choose to observe. And perhaps you've experienced this firsthand. Situations where everything seemed blocked, and suddenly, a tiny detail changed the entire direction. These moments are precious because they reveal that life responds in a more intimate way than we usually believe. It's in this space that the greatest lessons emerge, and that's why many feel the urge to record a thought, an insight, almost like a natural reflection of what pulses within. With each layer revealed, the feeling grows that the next movement will be not just a consequence, but also a revelation. As if the lake's surface were about to break, revealing something that was always there, hidden by the apparent calm. What rises from this silence still remains undefined, but its outline is already beginning to form, waiting only for the right moment to emerge. The waves spread, and even though they seem to disappear into the distance, something about them remains. You can't see it, but you feel the space around you has changed. It's as if each gesture has written an invisible signature in the air, and this imprint now begins to influence the paths ahead. The curious thing is that this influence doesn't reveal itself immediately. First comes the strange sensation that events are taking on new contours, as if the plot of life is being re-edited behind the scenes. The contrast intensifies. On the one hand, hope is kindled by the realization that small choices can generate unexpected transformations. On the other, obstacles arise that seem to test your resolve to continue. It's like crossing a narrow bridge in fog. Each step reveals only the next meter, and fear insists on whispering that there may be no ground ahead. But at the same time, with each firm step, the bridge widens, sustained by the very courage to move forward. This is the silent paradox that accompanies those who dare to listen to the signs. Clarity doesn't come all at once. It reveals itself in fragments, in flashes that illuminate parts of the road. There are nights when the horizon seems to shine brightly, and days when everything clouds over again. Yet, even in the fog, there is an underlying certainty. Something is moving. Imagine entering an ancient room, lit only by the flame of a candle. The walls seem to hold stories, the furniture creaks under the weight of time, and every shadow hints at a hidden secret. Your heart beats faster, torn between fear of the unknown and the anticipation of finding something precious. It's in this scenario that you realize, life doesn't always provide clear answers. Often, it offers symbols, waiting for you to learn to decipher them. And as this learning process begins to take shape, perception shifts. What was once an obstacle becomes seen as part of the process, almost as if the difficulty were also a sign, a test in disguise. Progress intertwines with challenge, uncertainty coexists with revelation, and the simple act of persistence becomes a test of trust. There's no conclusion yet, just the feeling that each layer opened paves the way for something greater. It's like hearing the distant sound of approaching footsteps in an empty hallway. You don't know who or what's coming, but the certainty that something is approaching is enough to keep your breath held. As the footsteps in the hallway draw closer, you realize it's not just someone coming, it's life itself shifting. The sound isn't linear, it expands and contracts, as if time breathes. Sometimes it echoes too close, sometimes it seems far away, and in this back and forth comes the realization that the answer lies not at the end of the hallway, but in the state in which you walk it. The yellow candlelight casts elongated shadows on the ancient walls, and each shadow carries a trace of what you once were and what you might become. The entire room seems to watch your movement with attentive silence, as if awaiting confirmation of something only you can recognize. Outside, the wind brushes against the windows, making the wood creak. Inside, your heart beats erratically, somewhere between trust and doubt. There are moments when the light opens like a window, and everything seems to make sense, whole, coherent, inevitable. And there are moments when the fog returns with a veneer, covering everything with a film of uncertainty. It is in this play of light and shadow that your perception is refined, as if each oscillation polishes an invisible lens you carry in your eyes. The lake from before is still within you. Now, however, it reflects not only the moon, but also small constellations that emerge when no one is looking. They are the fragments of silent decisions you made, the micro-courageous acts of inglorious days, the intimate consents given to what you couldn't name. These points of light don't illuminate the opposite shore, they illuminate the next step. And perhaps that's enough. To see the ground beneath each step, one at a time, with just the right clarity to avoid falling and the necessary dimness to avoid rushing your destiny. There are moments when the half-open door seems to close for a second. You feel the urge to retreat, to interpret the retreat as defeat. But something in you, having walked other corridors, recognizes the pattern. Before a finale, life gathers the scenery, adjusts the curtains, tests the stability of the stage. This retreat is not a refusal, it is preparation. The silence thickens because it is about to sustain a clearer sound. Imagine dust in the air, slowly swirling in a beam of light. Each particle dances, each particle is visible, and yet is lost when the light changes angle. So too are the signs. They appear strongly in certain areas and hide in others, asking you to change your perspective, not the truth. Progress, then, ceases to be a straight line and becomes a spiral, sometimes ascending, sometimes circling, always returning to the same point with a greater level of understanding. And yet, doubt has its place. It reminds us of the risks. It weighs the possible losses. It points out what could still fail. Without it, trust would be blind. With it, trust learns to touch the ground. Between the two, a kind of elegance in movement is born. You move forward without betraying prudence. You feel without giving in to panic. You observe without freezing. The body decodes what the mind later translates. At the end of the hallway, the light doesn't explode. It pulses. Once. Then again. As if the threshold were calling your name without making a sound. The air changes temperature. The scent of old wood mingles with an aroma you don't recognize, something reminiscent of morning and beginnings. The footsteps that were coming toward you cease, but the feeling of closeness grows. It's like standing before a still-sealed letter, and already knowing the handwriting on the outside is yours. You raise your hand. Not out of bravado, not out of urgency, but out of the inevitable weariness of carrying an endless question. Your fingers touch the warm surface of the door. In that minimal contact, skin, wood, time, something imperceptible shifts. It's not a revelation. It's the suggestion of a shape behind the veil, an outline that almost reveals itself, a design that demands another moment of silence before revealing who it is. The hallway continues to breathe, and the breath now seems to await yours. The wood beneath your fingers seem to yield, not with the force of someone opening, but with the gentleness of someone allowing passage. The air changed density, as if time had loosened its grip, and for the first time you realized you weren't just standing before a door, you were standing before yourself. The corridor that had brought you here hadn't disappeared, but now it seemed distant, like a memory necessary for this moment to exist. Every shadow, every silence, every doubt had built the ground where your feet now rest. The crossing didn't bring a blinding flash, but a gentle clarity, like the light of a dawn slowly painting the horizon. You didn't need to run, you didn't need to shout, just breathe. And in that breath, something aligned. Your body found rest, your mind found silence, and your heart, finally, found rhythm. The privilege lies not in the revealed destination, but in having come this far without abandoning the calling. The contrast between challenge and conquest dissolves when you understand that one was always the other in disguise. Darkness, after all, was not an enemy. It was the stage where light could prove its existence. Fear was not a barrier. It was the exact measure of how much courage needed to grow. Silence was not absence. It was the fertile ground where answers learned to germinate. Everything that seemed like a fragment now reveals itself as part of a larger design. Imagine yourself standing in front of an open field after a long night. The sun doesn't just illuminate, it reshapes the space. Mountains that were once silhouettes take shape, hidden valleys reveal themselves, and even the sound of birds seems to carry a new message. It's in this scenario that you realize you haven't walked alone. Each step was accompanied by something greater, each sign was an arrow, each hesitation was also a precaution. And that's why many, upon reaching this point, feel the natural impulse to leave a sign that they've been touched, that the journey made sense. A comment, a word, a silent gesture of support is how the heart responds when it recognizes that it hasn't been in vain. Liking, sharing, and staying with others isn't just engagement. It's the natural reflex of those who know they've been through something transformative. Now, all that remains is the memory that the journey doesn't end here. This was merely a threshold. The open door reveals not an end, but a new beginning. And you were present at the moment that suspended breath turned into movement. Cherish this privilege. Breathe deeply, because every breath, from now on, carries the echo of certainty. You have crossed, and nothing can erase the mark of this moment.